Okay, what's up YouTube? This is J-Man Time, and today I have a video on tanks of Switzerland. Switzerland, a small landlocked country in Europe, is known or has been known to design their own infantry fighting vehicles at least since the 1930s. But most people don't know about the various Swiss tanks that have been designed over the last 60 to 80 years. So in this video, I'm going to go over that, okay? Let's start. Swiss tanks of World War II. Schweizer PanzerKanone Zweiten Weltkrieg. Swiss tanks. During the Second World War, the Swiss Army lacked infantry fighting vehicles, but they did attempt to make some of their own battle tanks. The first Swiss tank was the Swiss Panzer 39. The Panzer 39, also sometimes referred to as the PanzerKanone 38, was a light tank designed between 1939 and 1940. It was really just an upgraded Czech LT-38 light tank. This tank was fitted with one 24mm Oerlikon anti-tank semi-automatic cannon. Its armor was 8 to 30mm, and its speed was between 42 kilometers an hour or 26.1 miles per hour. It had a crew of 3. This vehicle was pretty much just an upgraded LT-38, but fitted with a semi-automatic Oerlikon 24mm autocannon. The Oerlikon 24mm autocannon had an armor penetration of at least 55mm maximum. I mentioned this in the video on Swiss anti-tank weapons of the Second World War. You can look for that video somewhere else on my channel. The next tank designed by the Swiss military during the Second World War was the Nahkampfkanone 1, or the Nahkampfkanone 1, as you would say it in Swiss, which is really just German and French. The Nahkampfkanone 1 was a light tank destroyer designed between 1943 and 1944. Its main armament consisted of one 75mm 7.5cm field gun, later upgraded to one 105mm 10.5cm main gun. Its armor thickness was 25 to 40mm, and it had a speed of 55 kilometers per hour or 34 miles per hour. Its crew was 5. The Nahkampfkanone 1 was one of the first tanks to truly be designed 100% in Switzerland. This vehicle was based on the LT-38 chassis, but it was heavily modified to encompass these 75 and later 105mm field guns. This vehicle was designed as a response to both the Axis or the German Sturmschutzpanzer 3 and 4 series and the later American Wolverine series or M10 Wolverine series of tank destroyers. This prototype tank was never mass produced and it remained just that, a prototype. The next tank, or the next vehicle used by the Swiss military during the Second World War was the Opel P4 Kübelwagen. The Opel P4 Kübelwagen was a training armored car, or Panzertreppen armored car designed in 1943. This vehicle was armed with either a dummy 7.5mm machine gun or an actual 7.5mm Fauer M1925 machine gun. Its armor was, the armor of this vehicle was pretty strange. It had false armor, but it could be fitted with slat armor, as you see on modern day armored fighting vehicles. This vehicle had a crew of 3. This is one of these stranger vehicles for Switzerland. During the Second World War, Switzerland both expected and at times didn't expect an all-out war within its territory. So Switzerland did design some tanks and vehicles, but it also designed training vehicles that could easily be turned into full-fledged armored fighting vehicles, and the P4 Opel Kübelwagen was one of those vehicles. So yeah. The next vehicle designed during the Second World War by the Swiss military was the PanzerKanone II. The PanzerKanone II was another training armored car that could easily be turned into a full-fledged armored car. This vehicle was designed between 1943 and 1944.
Im ganzen Land haben sich die Freiwilligen zahlreich zu den Kursen für Panzernahbekämpfung gemeldet, die der Unteroffiziersverband im Schatten der ungarischen Tragödie eingeführt hat. Die Kursteilnehmer wurden mit dem Raketenrohr vertraut gemacht und lernten auf Panzerattacken schießen. Auch der Umgang mit Panzerwurfgranaten wurde geübt.
The next vehicle designed by Switzerland during the Second World War was the PanzerKanone. The PanzerKanone was an improvised turreted, heavy armored car from 1943. This vehicle was also used for training purposes but could easily be turned into an actual armored fighting vehicle. Its main armament was one 37mm PaK-36, the Czechoslovakian variant. Its armor is unknown, as it was never reported or written down. Its speed is also unknown. The only thing that is known about this vehicle is its road wheels. This vehicle was specifically designed to traverse the rough terrains around the Swiss Alps, or the Swiss mountainous region. This region of Switzerland is usually known for being pretty anti-vehicle, as the area is not safe for armored fighting vehicles, especially not tanks to traverse. But the PanzerKanone is one of the rare vehicles from the Second World War that Switzerland did design for military purposes, but mostly for training purposes. And finally, the last vehicle designed at the very end of World War II by Switzerland was the Nahkampfkanone II Gustav. The Gustav was a prototype tank destroyer designed in 1945. Its main armament was one 75mm gun, later upgraded to one 90mm PaK-49, a 45 caliber anti-tank gun. Its armor thickness was 25 to 40mm, and it had a speed of 50 kilometers per hour, or 50 kilometers an hour, or 31 miles per hour. This vehicle, like the Nahkampfkanone 1 or Nahkampfkanone 1, also didn't make it past the prototype stage, but it is one of the more developed tanks designed by Switzerland. Unfortunately, it was designed at the very end of the war. In fact, the very end of 1945. So yeah, an interesting vehicle, but it never got its chance to shine. Now let's move on to the next segment of the video, Swiss tanks of the Cold War, or Cold War tanks of Switzerland, or Kalten Krieges Panzer des Schweizer, or des Schweiz. Between 1946 and 1989, Switzerland designed a variety of tanks throughout the Cold War. These vehicles, like many other countries, these vehicles were designed specifically to fight the Soviet armor being developed by the Soviet Union. The first tank designed by Switzerland during the Cold War was the MOWAG HW-30. The HW-30 was a prototype light tank designed between 1950 and 1956. Its main armament consisted of one 90mm PaK-57 anti-tank gun. Its armor was between 15 and 20 millimeters, and its speed was between 60 kilometers per hour and 37.2 miles per hour. It had a crew of 3. This vehicle was very reminiscent of other tank destroyers from the era, or other light tanks from the era. It was really just a light tank that had a 90mm gun as its main armament. It was very reminiscent of the French AMX-13. The AMX-13 was the standard French light tank of the early part of the Cold War. The next vehicle, designed by the Swiss during the Cold War, was the MOWAG Jagdpanzer Pirate. The Jagdpanzer Pirate was actually two separate prototype tanks that were designed between 1951 and 1956. These tanks were prototype light tank destroyers. These vehicles were fitted, the first Jagdpanzer Pirate, or the early model, was fitted with one 75mm anti-tank gun. Its armor was between 15 and 20mm, and its speed was between 60 kilometers per hour or 37.2 miles per hour. It had a crew of 3, as most light tanks did during this era. The second version of the MOWAG Jagdpanzer Pirate, or the late variant, was designed between 1951 and 1956 also, and was armed with a 90mm Pak-57 anti-tank gun as well, but had a reduced armor thickness of between 10 and 20mm, but it still had the same speed of 60 kilometers an hour or 37.2 miles per hour. Both MOWAG Jagdpanzer Pirates were interesting prototypes. I mean, just look at them. I mean, they were pretty much the Swiss equivalent of the French AMX, or AMX-13 light tanks. The AMX-13 was later armed with, anti-tank missiles, but unfortunately for the MOWAG Jagdpanzer Pirate, it never made it past the prototype stage, and it's just one of many Swiss prototype tanks in the Cold War to be forgotten. The next tank designed by Switzerland during the Cold War was the MOWAG Skorpion, or the PanzerKanone Skorpion, or the Leichter Panzer Skorpion. This vehicle was fitted with a 90mm Gepard anti-tank gun. This vehicle was also designed between 1957 and 1958. Its armor was between 10 and 50mm, and it had a speed of 50 kilometers per hour or 31 miles per hour. This vehicle was very reminiscent of the World War II Hungarian self-propelled anti-aircraft gun Nimrod. For those of you who don't remember that infantry fighting vehicle from the Second World War. Except this vehicle was fitted with a single-shot 90mm Gepard anti-tank gun. This anti-tank gun could pierce armor of at least 100mm, so that's pretty useful, especially during the Cold War. In the 1950s, Switzerland began designing medium tanks, medium tanks instead of light tanks. And the first Swiss medium tank was the Mittlerer Panzer 58, or the medium tank model 1958. This vehicle was designed between 1953 and 1957. Its main armament was one 90mm Canon model 1958 domestic rifled main gun. Its armor thickness was between 20 and 80mm, and it had a speed of 55 kilometers per hour or 13 miles per hour. It had a crew of 5, like most medium tanks from that time period. The thing about Swiss medium tanks is during the Cold War is most medium tanks, as they called them in Switzerland, were really main battle tanks, kind of like the T-54 or 55. In fact, the Mittlerer Panzer is basically on the same level, except the T-54 or 55 had a 100mm gun rather than a 90mm gun. That's really the only difference. That and the country of origin, obviously. But still an interesting tank, the Mittlerer Panzer 58 was. The next Swiss tank designed during the Cold War was the Mittlerer Panzer 61. The Mittlerer Panzer 61, or the medium tank model 1961, was designed between 1957 and 1965. Its main armament was a British-made 105mm Royal Ordnance L7 rifled main gun. Its armor thickness was 120mm maximum. So this is still labeled a medium tank, but in reality it's a main battle tank. An interesting tank from the Cold War era of Switzerland. Again, this tank resembles the T-54-55 and the M46/M48 Patton series, but this is a Swiss tank, and this tank, like those aforementioned tanks, were well designed for their era, But like most tanks from that era, you don't really see them that much on the battlefield, with the exception of the T-54-55 and the later model M60 Pattons. The next Swiss tank designed during the Cold War was the Panzer 68. The Panzer 68 was a medium battle tank designed in 1971. This vehicle was armed with one 105mm Royal Ordnance L7 rifled gun, just like the previous tank, and had an armor thickness of 120mm. Its speed was 55 kilometers an hour, or 34 miles per hour. It had a crew of 4. This tank, like most tanks during the Cold War, was pretty generic looking. I mean, it looks not very much. It doesn't look that much different, but from the previous Panzer 61 or even the 58. This tank was pretty much the main Swiss battle tank throughout the Cold War. Not many were made. I mean, a lot of them were made when compared with other Swiss tanks. Pretty much, this was the most mass-produced Swiss tank, in history. All the other tanks designed by Switzerland either only had one prototype completed, or a small series of maybe 10 to 20 tanks completed altogether. The only vehicles that beat out this vehicle is the Swiss MOWAG Piranha series, and the Swiss armored personnel carriers as a whole. That is one of Switzerland's main export infantry fighting vehicles. So yeah, the next tank on the list is the MOWAG Cheetah, or the Gepard Jagdpanzer. This was a tank destroyer designed in 1960. Its main armament was either one 90mm anti-tank gun or one 105mm L7 main gun. Its armor thickness is unknown, as I couldn't find any sources for it, and its speed was 70 kilometers per hour, or 34 miles per hour. This is pretty much just a basic turretless self-propelled gun. It's very reminiscent of World War II German tanks like the Sturmschutzpanzer and the Elephant Ferdinand tank destroyers. Except the Ferdinand was designed a little bit differently. But its 105mm gun, or the 105mm gun of the MOWAG Cheetah, would have been more than enough to destroy any infantry fighting vehicle from that time period. But dealing with tanks, I can't really say. The T-54-55 would have been easy to destroy, but then again, you could do that with anti-tank missiles from the time period. So, yeah. The next tank designed by Switzerland during the Cold War was the Artillerie PanzerKanone 68. This was a heavy self-propelled gun designed between 1966 and 1972. Its main armament consisted of one 105mm Cannon 68 heavy howitzer. Its armor was 120mm and had a speed of 34.5 miles per hour. This is basically just your standard self-propelled howitzer. It's very similar to the American M109 howitzer, but this is pretty much like the Swiss equivalent of that vehicle. Interesting for its time period, but just your standard self-propelled gun. Another tank destroyer designed by Switzerland during the Cold War was the MOWAG Typhoon. The MOWAG Typhoon was a tank destroyer designed in the 1970s. Its main armament was one 105mm L7 clone main gun, or a clone of the L7 gun. Its armor thickness was 30 to 50mm, and it had the same standard speed of 34.5 miles per hour. Not much is really known about this vehicle, but it is pretty much an upgrade when compared to the MOWAG Cheetah mentioned earlier in the list. This vehicle is interesting. It's pretty much like the I can't remember the name of that Swiss tank. That Swiss tank, that Swedish tank. You know what I'm talking about. The Zweiten 103. That's what it's called. It reminds me of the Zweiten 103. Another tank or tank-like vehicle designed by Switzerland during the Cold War was the anti-aircraft battery, or Panzer 68. Fliegerabwehrpanzer 68. This vehicle was a prototype self-propelled anti-aircraft gun designed between 1977 and 1979. Its main armament consisted of two 35mm Oerlikon autocannons, or gas Druckladers. Its armor thickness was 120mm, and it had a speed of 52 kilometers per hour, or 32 miles per hour. Its crew was 3, which is pretty limited. I'm pretty sure everyone who's watching this video have seen vehicles like this. There are literally 20 different vehicles that were either directly copied from this tank or copied by vehicles that were also copied from this tank. So it's almost like everyone's just stealing from Switzerland when it comes to tank designs. Now, that's pretty common, really, when it comes to infantry fighting vehicles. So yeah. And the final Swiss tank for this list is the Self-Propelled 68. This was a medium target tank designed in 1972. This vehicle had no armament, just a false gun. Its armor was 80mm, and it had a speed of 55 kilometers an hour, or 34 miles per hour. Its crew was only 1. Now, just like the World War II segment of this video, Switzerland had a lot of fun, I guess you could say, designing these target tanks. When I first saw this vehicle, I didn't know what the hell it was, to be honest. I thought the main gun for a second was some type of heavy barrel machine gun. But, I mean, this is just, these training tanks they're strange and interesting, and this is just one of them. The Swiss also designed some training tanks, some training infantry fighting vehicles, but I'll talk about that in another video. So, other than that, that's it. The Self-Propelled 68 is just, I mean, it's interesting, but it's not really a tank. It's just a training tank or a target tank. It wasn't meant to be destroyed. It was designed to test your accuracy when handling anti-tank weapons from the time period. At this time, the Swiss military was just phasing out the Blinderside, the Belgian-designed Blinderside rocket launching systems for other more advanced systems like the TOW, the American TOW, the BGM-71 TOW, and a few other anti-tank missile designs during the era. But other than that, that's it. What do you guys think of Swiss Panzers or Swiss tanks? If you ask me, I think Switzerland designed a lot of tanks for a country that is usually not at war with anyone. In fact, I don't think Switzerland has really ever been in any major conflict outside of having minor border skirmishes throughout the First and Second World War. But other than that, that's it. What do you guys think of Swiss Panzers or Swiss tanks? If you ask me, I think Switzerland designed a lot of tanks for a country that is usually not at war with anyone. In fact, I don't think Switzerland has really ever been in any major conflict outside of having minor border skirmishes throughout the First and Second World War. Which tanks did you like the most out of all of them? My favorite of all the Swiss tanks I mentioned on this list was the Nahkampfkanone 1 or the Nahkampfkanone 1, the Panzer Attrappe Meili, the wheeled tank training vehicle, and the MOWAG, either the MOWAG H30, HW30, or the MOWAG Pirate, the earlier version. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So if you guys have any other ideas for future videos on tanks, please put them in the comment section below. And until next time, this was J-Man Time, signing off.